Good evening, everyone. My name is Christy Savakinas, and I am the Director of Technology at Pittston Area School District. I would like to welcome everyone to our second virtual regular school board meeting for May 19th, 2020. Attendees tonight include the Board of Education members, our Superintendent, Mr. Kevin Booth, Business Manager, Mr. Albert Malone, Solicitor, Attorney Samuel Falcone. Also attending are members of the district administrative team and our board secretary, Mrs. Claire Ellen Hopple. Mrs. Hopple will be available to field questions for those attending via the live stream. Those of you attending live, please note that there is a link available on the website to download and view tonight's agenda. The agenda will not be shown during the live stream, so we can focus on the board members as they present the agenda. Email address can also be found on the homepage of Pittston Area School District website, www.pittstonarea.com. I would like to start the meeting by sharing my screen and showcasing our fourth grade teachers as they present the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise and join in with them.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands,
one nation,
under God, indivisible,
with liberty.
Serino.
Dr. Serino.
Yes.
All right, you may begin calling the meeting to the work session to order and order a roll call.
Thank you. They're on?
Mr. Ednesio?
Present.
Dr. Cooper?
Here.
Mr. Crawford? Mr. Crawford?
Here.
Mr. Knick? Mr. Lawler?
Here.
Mr. Quinn?
Here.
Ms. Ricotta?
Here.
Mr. Salvo? Dr. Serino?
Here.
Mr.
Begin my superintendent's report. I would like to offer my sincere condolences to the Wyoming Area School District and the families of the students who were involved in a horrific auto accident the other evening. We may be rivals on the field, but we are all part of the same community. For the beginning of my report, I'm going to call on our business manager, Mr. Malone. He's going to share his screen, or Dr. Savakinas will share the screen for Mr. Malone to go through our proposed 2020-21 budget. Mr. Malone?
Christy, can we go to page 1? Thank you. I guess the best place to start is from the beginning. Our normal procedure starts in January, late December, early January, is that we do know the collective bargaining, wages, salaries, benefits, we estimate Blue Cross, etc. When we did that, and then we begin to adjust to end up to the final budget, if you will. The $1,437,000, we had proposed against that a cost index adjustment to real estate taxes of $850,000. The subsidy for the Commonwealth was showing at that time an increase of $200,000. The subsidy for special needs was showing an increase of 100,000. We were all set to begin our separate meeting. I think the date was March 12th or thereabouts when the pandemic was declared. And all bets were off. Everything stopped. The subsidy from the Commonwealth was no, we were told don't use that. Obviously, it just changed everybody's way of life. PASBO is the Organization of Business Officials, has come out and put a model together for each of the 500 school districts in Pennsylvania. And those items that you see in yellow or gold are as follows. They have told us that our collection rate would be reduced by 2.25%, or approximately 602,000. It would go from 90% collection, which was always a strong suit of Pittston, to 87.75%. Earned income tax, which is another driver to our budget, they said they project with the economy 17.5% reduction in earned income tax. Consumers, and because of the consumers affected, obviously state transfer tax, which is a tax that we share in for the sale of property, if you will. They're talking about a 40% reduction in that collection dollars in the amount of about 120,000. And they further went on to say that they thought that our interest rate would drop by about 80% or $32,000 over the year. So they said the short version is that there is a significant impact on local revenue, and local revenue is a big driver of our school budget. It's our items, the two biggest being the TIF, which is a infrastructure tax program, property coming off that, and now the taxes will go to Pittston area of 67,000, and an adjustment to salary and benefits almost to the tune of the exact same amount, somewhere in the neighborhood of $70,000. So as a result of all of that, and with no guidance out there at any point in time, including up to this current, make sure that these reduction in collections are reflected. So that gives us a revised expenditures over revenue of $2,719,522. Christy, can we go to the next slide, please? I apologize in advance, there's a typo, but we'll work our way down to that. Local revenue, total revenue is $51,726,269. Our expenditures, factoring in all of the previously explained from page 1, the next number should read $4,391,316, and a fund balance ending of $1,670,000. I think it's 671 that we should, as our building projects and our track, et cetera, began to kick in, that we need to fund that from, and that was always the case where we would transfer money from our fund balance over to capital projects fund. In this case, there is a motion on tonight to transfer $1,500,000 from the general fund to the capital project fund. That will bring us down to, jumping up just a little bit, to ending fund balance June 30th, 2021, $1,671,794. Christy, can we go to the next page, please? Again, this is just showing the variances that we have and really more of the same. You can see in the extreme left column that we still have the shortfall of expenditures over revenue of 2,719,000. And of balancing the budget, which is virtually the budget balanced in a materiality calculation. We were headed for pretty much the exact same scenario in the 2021 budget. And then, of course, the pandemic hit and everything came off the table. The only thing that we know for sure is that we don't know things for sure. There's much uncertainty out there, and no one seems to be willing to put anything in writing, if you will. So I think we're going to be, for the next 5 weeks, that's when the heavy lifting is going to continue, and we should find out how good our budgetary numbers are. Christy, the next slide, please. This will be the last slide, but it sums it up. It's revenue of 51 million, expenditures of 54 million, a shortfall of 2,719,000, a fund balance beginning with 4,391,000, and that is, our fund balance was originally 6 million, subtracting the 1.5 from that and the 200,000 that we may have been short, left us with 4,391,000. When we apply the shortfall of 2,719,000 in one fell swoop, one pandemic, if you will, we went from $6 million down to $1.6 million, with 1.5 million over in our capital project fund. Mr. Booth, I think that's pretty much all I have to say, unless there's any questions.
Many of our questions now revolve around graduation and where we're at with graduation. So if Dr. Haas, if you could address graduation and what we have coming up this week and in the future weeks for our graduates.
No problem. Thank you, Mr. Booth. I'd just like to begin by thanking our seniors and senior families during this time for their patience and understanding as we're all trying to give the class of 2020 the best graduation possible based on our current situation. And as we know, it's ever changing. So as we wait, we remain hopeful to give the best possible graduation and as traditional as we have an opportunity to have our graduation at PNC Field. And we obtained 3 dates in July that we can have our graduation there with approximately 1,500 tickets open for families of the senior class. So that was one of the options that we have available. And again, that depends on where we are within the classifications in the state during this pandemic. We anticipate right now we'll be in yellow by June 4th. And if we are to use PNC Field, we need to be in the green at that point in Lackawanna County. Another option we were looking at, and there are some areas that we need to discuss with it if it can occur. We are redoing our track, and it's going to begin to be ripped out on June 1st or the 8th, sometime during that point. And if we were to use Charlie Trippey Stadium, we need to be beyond red and looking into the yellow, and that would only allow us to have a car hearing about was the Pocono Raceway. We were able to obtain an opportunity to go to Pocono Raceway. The downfall with that is it's 45 minutes away. And again, our students and families would be on the track in a car. Today, with some of our teachers and Mr. Booth, we were discussing a layout in July with the possibility of using the Martin L. Mattei Middle School complex to host graduation on a traditional Pittston area facility. And that's in the planning stages also. The final idea that we've been looking at has been a virtual graduation. And I believe even working with our seniors and working with our senior families, that's probably our last option that we've been looking at. We plan on meeting with our seniors tomorrow with Mr. Lazevnik, our guidance team. We have some things to go over with our seniors, and we're going to present some of these ideas to them and get a poll for them in a survey so they can give us some ideas of what they and their families feel is best at this point, and try to gear our decisions based on that poll. We moved our prom. Our senior class advisors moved our prom to July 29th, and optimistically, we are hoping to be in green at that point where we can have a traditional prom for our seniors, and they'll have that opportunity as well. Senior Awards Night is a tradition here at Pittston area that we honor our seniors for their academic and their athletic awards for their 4 years here at Pittston area, and we are not closing the door on that. We did have extensions from scholarship committees opening their scholarships to June 1st. So we are currently looking at a program to do that, which most likely looks like it's going to be virtual based on the time constraints. At that time, our seniors who are graduating with honors will receive their sashes, cords, pins, and it would be something that our guidance team, Ms. Molinaro and Mrs. Caden and Dr. Milazzo have been planning for about the last week now. We're going to, again, go through some of that with our seniors tomorrow. Our senior sports awards, Mr. Turco and Mr. Struckis have an idea to have our senior award winners for letters for the spring. Although we didn't have a season, we feel those seniors deserve to be honored. And we have our letters printed out, and we want to do a ceremony at the school. It's going to be a drive-by ceremony with a date to be discussed and set this week. We did have a complication. Traditionally, our senior athletes receive Patriot plates for their had shut down production due to the pandemic. So our plates are on back order. Doesn't mean they're not going to receive them. It's just not going to be in the traditional way due to they are not going to be available. And finally, this Friday, we had a group of teachers who were very enthusiastic, and it was Ms. Kemzura, Ms. Brogan, Mrs. Craig really spearheaded this and organized a celebration parade for our seniors. That's going to be Friday, May 22nd from 5 to 7 p.m. And we had a committee together that we solicited donations from local businesses, families, teachers, and we were able to get signs with student pictures on them for every senior's yard. And what we're going to do is have those signs displayed around our complex by our junior lot and where our teachers park, and have a parade in cars for our graduates of the class of 2020 and their immediate family members. At this time also, the PAFT, the Pittston Area Federation of Teachers, and Bob Bartoli and their committee thought it was a great idea from the union to show their appreciation of our seniors, and they purchased t-shirts for every member of the senior class, distributing caps and gowns to our seniors to try to start preparing for graduation, and if seniors were looking for opportunities to get pictures as they would traditionally do so. So we're trying our best, and just I believe we have a lot of ideas out there, and just the holdup is we're hoping for the best, and we want to give the parents and seniors what they deserve, and we're going to try to hold out to give that the best we possibly can. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Haas. To continue now with my report, under communications, C1, that the abatements and additions received from the Luzerne County Assessment Office be acknowledged as received and placed on file. C2, that the attached applications for permit to use school facilities be acknowledged as received, ratified where necessary on June 2nd. Under finance, F1, that approval be granted for the purchase of textbooks and supplementary materials for the 2020-21 school year, following a review and recommendation of the administrative staff and with the approval of the superintendent. F2, that the communication received from Dr. Anthony Grieco, Executive Director of Luzerne Intermediate Unit 18, submitting the schedule of contracted professional services for the 2020-21 school year, in the amount of $813,870.19 be acknowledged as received, approved, and placed on file. F3, that the addendum of transportation agreement for Yatesville Bus Company be acknowledged as received, approved, and placed on file. F4, that the addendum to transportation agreement for Pace Bus Company be acknowledged as received, approved, and placed on file. F5, that 1.5 million be transferred from the general fund to the capital fund account. F6, that the proposed final budget of the Pittston Area School District for the fiscal year 2020-2021 be approved with general fund expenditures $54,445,791, keeping with a millage rate of 15.9820. No increase currently to the millage rate. Under bids, B1, that the secretary be authorized to advertise for duplicating paper for the 2020-21 school year. Those bids will be opened on June 10th, 2020 at 11 a.m. in the boardroom of the senior high school. It will be the recommendation for B2 that the proposal for healthcare consultant be awarded to Evolve Insurance Advisors, subject to a review of the solicitor. A 3 submitted by Dr. John Haas, principal, be approved, providing they meet all requirements. We're going to be adding G2, which had been tabled last month, that the district's food service contract with Nutrition Inc. be renewed for the 2020-21 school year. Dr. Serino, that concludes my report.
Thanks, Kevin. LIU 18, Mr. Anizio, anything you'd like to update us with?
I do not, Dr. Serino. I have a meeting tomorrow, so I'll have an update next board meeting.
Thank you. For the Wilkes-Barre Career Technical Center, Bruce, anything you'd like to add?
Yes, I just want to add that we shipping our budget to all the sending districts with a 0% increase, and there'll be slight refunds going back to the district just for student participation.
Thank you. Any new business from the board?
Now would
mute myself. Public input is coming in. I do have a question related to the agenda for Mr. Malone. Have you been able to get a projection on the district-wide unemployment rate?
We haven't, Kevin. We can. It wasn't an area that I took a look at. All our people are being paid through the pandemic, and we could take a look at that and report to you directly.
Okay, that question came from Jeff Bauman from Duryea. So if you would like to close the work session and begin the regular board meeting.
Thank you. I'd like to end the work session at this point and call the meeting to regular meeting to order and have a roll call. Carolyn?
Mr. Anizio,
Present.
Dr. Cooper,
Here.
Mr. Crawford,
Here.
Mr. Knick,
Here.
Mr. Quinn, Mr. Quinn,
Here.
Mr. Coda, here, Mr. Salvo, Mr. Salvo,
Here.
Dr. Serino.
Present. The board met in virtual executive sessions on May 12, 2020 at 5 p.m. and on May 19, 2020 at 4 p.m. for the purpose of discussing personnel. I'll entertain a motion to approve minutes of the meeting held on April 28, 2020. Roll
Mr.
call.
Anisio, motion.
Second.
Second.
Mr. Salvo, second.
Roll call.
Mr. Anisio,
Yes.
Dr. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Crawford, Mr. Crawford,
Yes.
Mr. Knick,
Yes.
Mr. Lawler,
Yes.
Mr. Quinn,
Yes.
Ms. Ricotta,
Yes.
Mr. Salvo,
Yes.
Dr. Sereno.
Yes. Moving to communications. A motion that the communications C1 through C2 as presented by the superintendent be acknowledged as received and accepted and placed on file.
Motion. Second.
Mr. Anisio,
Yes.
Dr. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Crawford,
Yes.
Mr. Knick,
Yes.
Mr. Lawler,
Yes.
Mr. Quinn,
Yes.
Ms. Ricotta,
Yes.
Mr. Salvo,
Yes.
Dr. Sereno.
Yes. And the finance that F1 through and including F5 be approved.
Motion.
Second.
Mr. Anisio,
Yes.
Dr. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Crawford,
Yes.
Mr. Knick,
Yes.
Mr. Lawler,
Yes.
Mr. Quinn,
Yes.
Ricotta,
Yes.
Mr. Salvo,
Yes.
Dr. Sereno.
Yes. That the proposed budget of the Pittston Area School District for the fiscal year 2020 and 2021 be approved. Kevin, if you could add those numbers in.
Yes, the
For me.
general fund expenditures, 54,445,791 at a millage rate of 15.9820.
We have a motion.
Motion.
Second. Second.
Dr. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Crawford,
Yes.
Mr. Knick,
Yes.
Dr. Sereno.
Yes. Now I entertain a motion to accept.
Second.
Mr. Anisio,
Yes.
Dr. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Crawford,
Yes.
Mr. Knick,
Yes.
Mr. Lawler,
Yes.
Mr. Quinn,
Yes.
Ms. Ricotta,
Yes.
Mr. Salvo,
Yes.
Dr. Sereno.
Yes. Now I'd like to entertain a motion that the proposals heard from the healthcare consultants be awarded to Evolve Insurance Advisors.
Motion. Mike Crawford.
Second, Frank Lawler.
Mr. Anisio, Dr. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Crawford,
Yes.
Mr. Knick,
Yes.
Mr. Lawler,
Yes.
Mr. Quinn,
Yes.
Ms. Ricotta,
Yes.
Mr. Salvo,
Yes.
Dr. Sereno.
Yes. G1, that the attendance list of graduates submitted by Dr. John Haas, principal, be approved, providing that meet all regulations. Motion?
Motion.
Second.
Second. Yes.
Mr. Quinn,
Yes.
Ms. Dakota,
Yes.
Mr. Salvo,
Yes.
Dr. Sereno.
Yes. Now I'd like to entertain a motion that the food service contract be awarded to Nutrition Inc.
Mr. Anisio.
Motion?
Motion.
Second. Mr. Knick.
Mr. Edmisio? Dr. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Crawford,
Yes.
Mr. Knick,
Yes.
Mr. Lawler,
Yes.
Mr. Quinn,
Yes.
Ms. Dakota,
Yes.
Mr. Salvo,
Yes.
Dr. Sereno.
Yes.
P4.
Motion.
Second.
Mr. Edmisio? Dr. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Crawford,
Yes.
Mr. Knick,
Yes.
Mr. Lawler,
Yes.
Mr. Quinn,
Yes.
Ms. Dakota,
Yes.
Mr. Sereno,
Yes.
Mr. Salvo,
Yes.
Under P2, I know we've had some conversation with personnel, and at this point, I'd like to discuss in particular, the girls' basketball program, in which we were having discussion about, and take any comments or motions.
I make a motion to appoint and fill all extracurricular positions for the 2020-2021 school year as presented in P2, except the appointment of the following positions be tabled, declared open, posted, and advertised. Head coach in girls basketball, assistant coach girls basketball, 3 positions, and junior high coach girls basketball, 2 positions.
Motion?
I'll second that. I'll second it.
Okay.
Roll call?
Mr. Edmisio? Dr. Cooper, Ms. Dakota,
Yes.
Mr. Salvo,
Yes.
Dr. Sereno.
Yes. That P3 and P4 be accepted as so read and so presented.
I didn't hear. Okay. Mr. Edmisio? Dr. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Crawford,
Yes.
Mr. Knick,
Yes.
Mr. Lawler,
Yes.
Mr. Quinn,
Yes.
Ms. Dakota,
Yes.
Mr. Salvo,
Yes.
Dr. Sereno.
It's that for contractual agreement.
I move that.
I'll make the motion for Mr. Jambert.
I'll second that motion. I move that Christopher Barnack be appointed to the position of assistant principal.
And I second that.
Sam, help me with protocol here.
As the chair, it's your prerogative whether or not you want to just take an open vote across the board or in which order you would like the candidates to be voted on. So basically, you can either vote on Mr. Barnick or Mr. Jamber, or you can just do it across the board and each board member can lodge his or her vote. It's your prerogative as to how you wish the vote to proceed.
I don't know. Let's do it by the fact, we'll read the motion and let everyone present the name.
That's, as far as custom in the past, that's what you've done when you've had competing motions. You've permitted each board member to enter his or her vote based upon whatever, both candidates have the roll call.
So we read the candidate's name at roll call, correct?
No, you could just have the roll call, and each board member would indicate which person he or she is voting for as the roll call.
Okay.
Mr. Ednizio,
Mr. Barnack,
Dr. Cooper,
Mr. Barnick.
Mr. Crawford,
Mr. Barnack.
Mr. Knick,
Mr. Jamber,
Mr. Lawler,
Mr. Barnack.
Mr. Quinn,
Mr. Jamber,
Ms. Ricotta,
Mr. Barnick,
Mr. Salvo,
Mr. Barnack.
Dr. Sereno.
Mr. Barnick.
All right, Mr. Barnick gets it.
All right, now go to finance. FD1 and FD6 be accepted as so presented.
motion,
motion,
Mr. Ednizio,
yes.
Dr. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Crawford,
Yes.
Mr. Knick,
yes.
Mr. Lawler,
Yes.
Any new business from the board? If not, Kevin, I'll defer to you again on public input.
Yes, we had a question from Rio Boyle. When can we expect a check with the positive cafeteria funds returned? We could have the checks sent out upon request, or the balances could be transferred to another student. So we'll be sending a Connect Ed out to our parents to allow for them to either transfer to a sister or brother. If you don't have a sister or brother, then a check will be sent out if you have a positive balance. There was a question on the caps and gowns. Seniors get to keep the caps and gowns. That came from Mrs. Vito. Students get to keep the caps and gowns. Those are all the questions I have. If a question comes in from this point forward, we will answer that question via email.
I'll now entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion,
Motion.
second.
second.
Thank you.
Thank you.